We're going to call this meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. on November 1st. Please everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Crosby, would you please lead us?
Raise the flag with the right hand over the heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mr. Russi.
Councilmember Lau.
Present.
Councilmember Crosby.
Here.
Councilmember Carter.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Here.
Mayor Hepburn.
Here. Announcements of upcoming community events. Susan Carson, Meals on Wheels.
Not really an announcement, but the Meals on Wheels mission statement is to provide healthful, high-quality, home-delivered meals to homebound residents, allowing them to maintain their independence and dignity. This service enriches the lives of many seniors who look forward to the human connection and social interaction. For San Dimas and Laverne, it was founded in 2003, and the meals are planned by a dietitian prepared at the Hillcrest Kitchens. Dietary needs, likes, dislikes, allergies, and requirements are all observed. Hot meals are delivered 5 days a week at the lunch hour, and they cost $5 a meal. Currently, we are servicing 5 routes in San Dimas and Laverne and serve approximately 70 clients. This is down from about 100 clients, which we had prior to COVID. Meals on Wheels is a nonprofit organization, and we depend on volunteers for delivery. And we're currently in need of help to deliver the meals. We're really, really short. Everybody's filling in, and it's just difficult. The time needed is only an hour to an hour and a half. It's at the lunch hour. Volunteers only need to give a day a week during the lunch hour. Usually it's from 11 to 12:30. And we go to Hillcrest, right where the kitchen is, and the meals come out, and someone could go. We have husband and wife teams. One husband drives or wife drives, and one delivers. Driving is essential. You have to have a car, but several teams of neighbors do it together. One person will go, but we're just really short. So if anybody knows someone, even that would benefit from a meal, but if you know somebody that might be interested, or if anyone is interested, the phone number is 909-596-1828. We're currently waiting for the website to be developed. It's supposedly being developed right now. And also, donations are always beneficial. The fire department consistently donates to Meals on Wheels, and it's really appreciated. So,
Say the phone number one more time for anybody.
909-596-1828. And that's to volunteer, or if you know somebody that would benefit from receiving meals. And you don't have to get meals every single day. You can get meals Tuesday and Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or 5 days a week.
Susan, can you let the city know? I know Mr. Russi was going to say, because I can do a minute with the mayor. We can post it also on the city website. Let's get the information out, because I know there's a lot of people out there would love to help, I'm sure, and donate.
I
So
would really appreciate it.
If
Yeah.
you wouldn't,
Go
if you
ahead.
wouldn't mind maybe giving me a call tomorrow, and we can get some information that we
Sure.
can push
Do
out on our
you
social
want
media.
me to give you this?
That would work as well.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Russi, if you give me a copy of that too, and I'll go ahead and blast
Sure.
it out there too. So, did you want to?
Oh, my only question was for donations. Is it food? You're looking for food or monetary, or who? How should that be directed
Reach out to
to?
Meals on Wheels.
And then who do we give it to? Can we give it to you,
You
or?
can give it to me.
Okay.
Yeah, just make it out to Meals on Wheels.
This is not vacation fund. This is Meals on Wheels. Sorry, he's not involved. That's it. He's out. Yeah.
Not to my husband. You could give it to myself, Joe Gabaldon. He really has saved us so much. He volunteers the same day I do, but he also, when we're really strapped, he has come in so many extra days, and so.
Well, let's get it out. Let's get it out to the public, and then let's tighten up where we get the donations too, because that's really important for you guys. I know it's a tight budget, so, Mr. Rusty, you're going to work on that?
Yeah,
Thank you, Susan,
I
very much.
appreciate it. Thank you.
If I could remind everybody too, please, that we must wear our masks while we're inside, please. If we could put our masks on. Danita, if we could put,
I'm protesting against that, so I'm sorry. It's not an arrestable offense, but if you want to have police escort me out, that'll be fine too.
well, we don't have police, so I can't escort her out. Yes, yeah.
We can recess.
That's the thing. I understand the protest, but it's for everybody around us, you know. You're sitting close with other people, the health of other people.
Yes.
And,
90% of people in this room have been vaccinated.
but.
Danita, before we get into this, it's a policy of the city. It protects not only our city employees, but people in the group. And I mean, I understand what's going on, but I'm going to go ahead and recess right now, and then we're going to come back at a point where either you can wear a mask or you can sit outside in the lobby. I'm sorry. That's what it has to be. We're going to recess right now at 6:41 p.m. We'll call back to order once we get that taken care of. My time, 6:44. We're going to call the meeting back to order at 6:44 p.m. I'd like to make an announcement real quick before Ms. Best gets up. There was a young man this weekend that was a runaway, whatever the situation was, and then a young lady today also. They both have been found. So we'll leave it at that. I'm not sure the details, but thank God. So that's one bit of good news for everybody. So please let everybody know. I know a lot of residents have been calling me very concerned. What can we do? How can we help? So our police department and other police departments have done their job and put them in safe custody. So we're good to go. Ms. Best.
I'm Sherry Best with the Laverne Historical Society. We have two activities coming up. The first is on Saturday, November the 20th. We're going to take a walking tour at the University of Laverne of their Citrus Roots collection. This was a collection of all things related to the citrus industry that the University of Laverne competed for the custody of this collection. We haven't gotten a chance to see it because of COVID, but now we're going to be able to go into the Wilson Library and look at some of this collection. 13 people are already signed up. We're limited to 20. So get busy and call me or email me and get on the list, and if it's very popular, we'll just schedule another tour. Ben Jenkins, who's the archivist at the University Library, is going to direct the tour. So I'll put some flyers out. The second item, oh, and by the way, that will not interfere with Cruising Laverne, because after you've gone to the library, then you can go out and look at cars. So it's perfect, you're already there.
Can you say the date and time again?
The 20th, and we will meet in front of the library at 12 p.m. So you do need to reserve with me, and that information is all on the flyer. The second event is on December the 11th. We're going to do our vintage gifts and have music by the high school band. The band is coming over to our location on 3rd and G Street on the 11th of December, and from 2 until 5, we'll have our vintage gift table, we'll have a bake table, we'll be serving cookies and hot spice cider, and then the band comes at 4:45. So get into the holiday mood and come over and do a little last bit of Christmas shopping. You don't have to pay shipping. It's not stuck in a container somewhere. It'll be right out there on the table. So come help yourself, and we'll see you then. Of course, we'll have T-shirts and books for sale as well.
Did you say spiced or spiked cider?
Spiced.
I just want to make sure.
Not hot spiked cider,
Okay.
hot spiced
Just
cider.
checking. Okay.
Yes, there you go.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Tim,
And-
on that note,
Yes.
I'd like to just express, everybody would really like, if you're available, go to this event down there, because on 3rd Street, the band came out a couple years ago, and when the band marches down the street, you can hear them coming. It is just really powerful, and the high school band is just so good. So I encourage everybody to come on out. It's really good.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to announce anything right now? Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Yvonne Gallegos. Good evening. I have two announcements. One, that there will be a CASI meeting this Wednesday at 5 p.m. And if anyone is interested in attending the meeting, we will be posting Zoom on social media. You also can follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at cassie.laverne, or you can email cassie.laverne@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to provide you the Zoom information for the meeting on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, at 5 o'clock. And just a reminder that we also meet every first Wednesday of the month. So again, all are welcome to join. The second announcement, I did want to just acknowledge that today is Dia de los Muertos, or All Saints Day in the Catholic tradition. Dia de los Muertos just reminds us to remember our loved ones that have passed on, to celebrate them, and to build altars, or what we call ofrendas, to them with all of their favorite things. It's a beautiful celebration in the Hispanic culture, and I just wanted to celebrate it all with you. And my shirt with the sugar skulls, it's just a really beautiful tradition that we have in celebrating those that we love that have passed on before us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to make an announcement? We will go ahead and close that, and we're moving to the consent calendar. Mr. Rusty, has anything been pulled on the consent calendar?
No, there is not.
Is there any questions or anything for staff on the consent calendar?
Yes, Robin Carter, needs to abstain from just the minutes from voting on those because I was absent last meeting. So the rest, though, I can vote on, correct? Okay.
Then, if there are no questions, I need a motion.
I'll move that we accept the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
I'll second it.
Vote, please. I mean, yeah. There we go. It's been a week, okay? Come on.
4-1 again, huh? No, just-
Yeah. We move to item 6. Mr. Russi, we have a public hearing on proposed maps for district voting divisions.
Yes, you do, Mr. Mayor. And as you know, the city has brought in a consultant to manage this project for us. We have had 2 previous hearings on understanding the process as well as identifying communities of interest. They have now received the first wave, I'll call it, of draft maps that they have reviewed, and Doug Johnson from National Demographics will be going through those, as well as giving some opportunity for council to give some direction. The next phase of this will be the second and final public hearing that the council will make a decision on which map or what direction to go. So this is to strictly give input and direction back to them to finalize that information. So with that, I know they have a prepared presentation to go through. I've put a copy here in front of the council for you to review. But otherwise, Doug.
Thank you very much.
No, that's mine.
So, Mayor, members of council, pleasure to be back with you. I'm joined by Mr. Tatum, also from NDC, and we're happy to be with you again. We'll go ahead and jump right in now. As the city manager just mentioned, now we get into the meat of actual maps. So we're happy to be taking you to this discussion. Go ahead to the next slide.
Oh, whoa. I'm sorry, I can't read that. I feel like the Matrix.
Exactly.
When I was a kid, we had 2 years in fact.
Mhm.
Giving me a flashback.
Okay, thank you very much. So this slide looks familiar, hopefully, because we've covered this at the previous 2 hearings, but it's always worth reminding folks of what are the rules and the guidelines that we're facing as we draw these lines. So I'll just briefly touch on them. First, of course, we have federal law that is preeminent over everything, so we have to have an equal population in each district. We have to make sure we comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, and we have to avoid any racial gerrymandering. So those 3 we're always very careful to guide and advise our clients on. And then we have the new state laws. So Correct. So the difference between the largest and smallest districts can be no more than 10%. So as a rule of thumb, we say, plus or minus 5. Technically, there's ways around that a little bit, but yeah, 10% difference between largest and smallest. So, and now this time we have the new California Fair Maps Act, which sets forth the criteria in the middle. So in ranked priority order, they are, the districts must be geographically contiguous. The districts must avoid dividing neighborhoods and communities of interest to the extent practicable. The lines should try to follow easily identifiable boundaries, so rivers, freeways, major roads, that kind of thing. And then we should try to be compact, which means avoiding bypassing one group of people to get to another group of people. And then the law also includes a prohibition, which is we cannot look at political data. We can't favor or discriminate against a party in drawing these lines, so we just don't look at political data at all. Those are the statutory requirements. If you meet all of those, you can then consider kind of the third group, which are other traditional principles. But again, these only come after the statutory requirements. So these are things in redistricting systems. We have considerations like minimizing how many people shift from a 2022 election to 2024, and preserving the core of existing districts. Those are traditional considerations in redistricting. In this case, we're just districting. So we don't have existing districts that we're taking into account. So here you can look at future population growth within that 10% range a little bit. We can play a little bit with where we expect faster growth than elsewhere. And you can also, again, this is a goal, not a requirement, try to avoid pairing council members. The idea is really to respect the voters of this. You let the voters decide who's earned re-election instead of the lines dictating that no matter how the voters think, these two are together and only one of them can be re-elected. So again, that's one of the considerations you can take into account, but not a requirement from the statutes. So that's a brief review of those. If we go on the next slide. In terms of the Voting Rights Act, here we're really looking at the Latino population. This is what we call a heat map. The blues are less than 25% of the citizen voting age population is Latino. Going up to the greens, yellows, and reds, where Latinos are a majority of the estimated voting population, or CVAP. And you can clearly see there's a definite concentration at the south end of the city of Latinos. And so we have looked at it. They can't get up to be a majority of a district, but we still want to be sure that we don't divide that neighborhood in a way that dilutes their voting strength. This does touch on one of the issues that I went into detail in the staff report about 4 districts versus 5 districts. As I mentioned, in either situation, that the Latino population is not large enough to be a majority of a district. So we want to try to keep them together. But in a 5-district system, there will be fewer other voters in that district with them because the districts are smaller. And so they'd be a larger percentage of the vote in that district versus a 4-district system where the districts are bigger. And so there's more other people. So one of the things in the staff report that I do touch on is it's not a legal requirement. You're not going to get in legal trouble if you go for 4 versus 5. But in the spirit of the CVRA, it makes more sense to go with 5 than with 4. So we mentioned that in there. So I do want to touch on that when you're looking at it. You can see where that area is as we go through the maps. So go to the next slide, please. So we did get 5 draft maps in. As you'll remember, this is a very time-compressed process, in part because of the workings of the California Voting Rights Act, and in part because of the data. We were supposed to have our data in March. Because of COVID, the federal data release was delayed until mid-August, so we lost 5 months there. Then the state, in just an unfortunate timing, had switched to a system where they reallocated the prison population. So the state said it would take them 4 to 6 weeks to do that. So even after the data came out in August, we're still looking at 4 to 6 weeks. Unfortunately, the state took almost all of that. 5.5 weeks later, they released September 21st their data. But unfortunately, that data was bad. So not only did they take 5.5 of the maximum 6 weeks, it then took them another week to fix the data and to get that all straight. So it really did jam us up. And as you've experienced, that made it very hard to have as long of a public engagement period as we want. But we were happy to see that 5 people hopped on there, and once the data and tools were available, they did draw maps. And so we have 5 maps to look at. They came in by the deadline. 3 of them have 5 districts, 2 of them have 4 districts. And I'll talk about the population balance. Only one of them, Public 103, is population balance as shown, in part because because they were using estimated data. And so one of the options certainly before you is if you like a map, especially one of the maps that are close, then you can ask it. NDC is happy to make the adjustments needed, and to some degree that's what we talk about in our analysis we go through is, okay, when they switch from the estimated data to the final data, it went out of balance, but how could we fix that? So as we go through the maps, we'll take that in consideration, and I'll point out which ones did the authors think were balanced because the data said they were balanced, and then they just fell out with the new data. As noted here, 102 and 105 fall into that category of where they were balanced as drawn by the author, and with the final data, they were a little out of balance, so they are ones we could fix. So let's jump into the maps. So on the right-hand side is the map is submitted by the resident. This is map 101. And then on the left is some NDC analysis and cleanup of it. You can see kind of a couple of themes that you'll see in the maps. On the left-hand side, a lot of the maps have a district running down the east side of the city. Part of the reason for that is we have to follow census blocks, which are the units of geography, and usually they're a city block. In the south end of the city, they're really easy because they're each a city block, and the south end has small blocks. When you get in the hills, the Census Bureau doesn't like hills and they don't like cul-de-sacs because they want the lines to follow streets, and there's no street at the top of a hill. So for example, where you see in the right-hand map, where you see the 1 for District 1, all the way to the top tip of the pink district, District 1, that's one giant skinny census block. And so that really limits people's options. And then there's territory to the west of that that's separate census blocks, but they're trapped. So you can't, the district would be non-contiguous, so you don't stick with that. So one of the things you'll see in a lot of these maps is that section kind of moving back and forth because it's all locked in by the shape of that block. So in this case, we have District 5 in the kind of north of freeway of District 5, District 1, and a little bit of District 2, as 2 gets the freeway corridor. A common theme in a lot of these maps is that District 2 coming down to Foothill, kind of that freeway triangle being all together in a district, or at least the most of it. You have District 3 down there, and then District 4. What we're looking at on the left-hand side is kind of NDC's analysis of this map, looking at a little bit of, you can see in where we're doing some population balancing between the districts, and then shifting District 1 from the east side to the west side, so that 5 and 1 can both come down parallel. Different ways of looking at communities, different ways of trying to keep them together, and trying to follow, keeping that Latino neighborhood together as much as possible as well. And we are also, once we look at walk through the list of the statutory criteria, then also looking to keep each council member in a separate seat to the degree we can. Again, getting back to that, leave the choices up to the voters.
Just one quick question.
Yes.
This particular map 101, it has, looks like to me, Lau and Davis in the same, and then Hepburn and Carter in the same, and the Crosby would be basically in his own. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I don't have the PDF in front of me.
Yeah,
It's printed on there, yeah.
to try to do a proper map, you're trying to balance it.
But, I'm sorry,
Yes.
but that's the map there by the resident?
Right, understand.
And then they did on this one, they redid it for population, so it's slightly different. I don't know how.
It's still the same.
I don't know how it reflects.
It's
on
still
it.
the same it's still the same as far as the distribution. You're the only
Oh.
council member that has a separate district, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, no, sorry for the confusion, yeah. No, the listing of who's in which district is just for the residents map.
I understand.
Yeah,
I was just
so
making a point.
In the NDC map, they're not paired up anymore.
Yeah, the map on the left,
That one's cleared.
the map on the left, they've cleared it up so that everybody has their own
I'm
district.
looking at the other side.
Right,
Okay.
you're looking at the right side, and on the
Oh.
left, the NDC analysis, that's what I
excuse
noticed
me?
too. So that was gonna be my request to see whether we could, but they've already done that.
They've done it,
So,
okay.
yeah,
Okay,
so on
I'm
the-
looking at the other side and bouncing
Yeah.
back and
Right.
forth. Never mind. Thank
Yeah.
you, you're doing your job.
No problem. The other piece is that the resident drawn map 101 on the right, it looks, talking about nailing following the major roads, it really does. Every border is a major road, just about. The catch is that that's why it's not population balanced. So they were following major roads, but it wasn't even population balanced as they drew it in the system. So as we population balance it on the left, you can see we end up not following those major roads quite as well because we had to balance it, unfortunately. So that's part of the other piece that we're doing as we're doing our analysis of how could you balance this map or make it work. So, okay, so we'll go to the next map. So 102, this is one of the maps that in the system as drawn, it did appear to be balanced, and then when we put it in the final data, it fell out of balance. So this in particular, we try to redraw it. The other kind of Fair Maps Act concern that we see in 102 on the right is District 5 has that arm kind of stretching along the north side of the freeway, which looks odd. It could be a community of interest situation, and we welcome the residents' comments, explaining that if that is the reason. But mainly, it looks non-compact, and so when we do our analysis of it, we're looking at trying to pull that all together. And as noted, it's really hard to do on the west side of town because of that giant block and how that factors in. So we do, again, essentially the same 1 and 5 lay together here. In the south, in this case, District 4, both in the resident map and in our analysis map, is coming farther north than it did in 101 on the District 4 on the west side. So it's a little bit less far north in the center and picks up more territory on the west side of town coming up there. And then the other issue as we analyze 102, the border between 2 and 3 and between 2 and 5 is really kind of what we call zigzags. It's a common thing. Sometimes it's required for population balancing, but it really is cutting through neighborhoods, and so we were looking at how could that be cleaned up. And you end up actually similar to 101, where you can move that so it follows the foothill and a major road south and doesn't have to have the zigzags element to it. So that's the 102, and then our analysis of how that might be cleaned up or shown and brought into population balance as well. So go to 103. 103 is the one that actually was population balance as drawn, very, very close. It was only a little over 2% in the system. And when it was updated, it's kept essentially the same population balance. So worked out very well in the population numbers. Yeah, you can see, again, 3 and 4 in the north with 2, as drawn, 2 comes over the freeway just a bit. And then again, we get the kind of L shapes to 1 and 5. They're very common, both driven by population balancing and trying to keep that Latino neighborhood together. It does cut a little bit into the edges of the Latino concentration in the resident drawn 103. So in our analysis of it and looking at what can we do to possibly clean it up or improve it a little bit, you can see 5 comes a little bit north around the university and to the west of the university area there. And that's just trying to keep that neighborhood a little bit more together. What this map really does, 103, as drawn by the resident, it makes it different, is that 5 comes all the way up to Foothill. And so we kept that when we were analyzing it, and you can see in our analysis map it also goes all the way up to Foothill. And in this case, we didn't have to population balance it. We're really just looking at trying to the degree we can, clean up that neighborhood border between 3 and 4, and again, look at an option where the 3 changes to the east side of town rather than the west side of town. I go into 104. So 104 is one of the 104 and 105 are the 4 district maps. And so, very nice quadrants approach, certainly, great on compactness, great, really good on following major roads. But down south, we are kind of cutting that neighborhood, that Bonita neighborhood into 2 pieces. And it's not, it wasn't population balance as drawn. It was 14% off in the system. So they're really focusing, I think, on trying to be compact and just missing the population numbers. We go on to 105.
So you didn't bother cleaning those up at all because of the fact of it was off population base. Is that correct?
It was off population balance, and because the basic nature of kind of quadrant system is going to cut through that Southern Latino concentration.
Okay.
So that if it's your direction for us to revisit it, we're happy to do that. But we just didn't feel like we could, essentially we'd have to redraw the whole map if we were gonna try to put that together. And so-
It's because of your first statement, that the spirit of the CVRA, is the Latino vote to be minimized?
Exactly. You'd have a stronger Latino voice in a 5-district system than you would in a 4. So, yes. So-
But you could redraw a 4 if necessary to try to make it in compliance, is that correct?
Yes. we
You would
could-
have to redo the whole thing.
Right, we could
Okay.
put that neighborhood together by uniting the South. It would still have that issue of it would be a lower percentage than it can be in a 5-district system, but we could redraw the South if that was the
Okay.
council's direction too. And 105, you can see, is more of an effort to keep that area together, but it has a similar issue down south. And then, kind of, the district, I didn't renumber this one, I should have. One of the tricks of the district R system is that instead of being 1 through 4, it assigns, the first district is assigned district number 0. So that's just part of the system that comes in, and I can fix it on the slide. But the pink, what would be 4 in here is labeled as 0. And 2 border. I assume that's trying to population balance, because in the system they had it very close, just 1.66% deviation. But it's really kind of cutting through those neighborhoods with those edges. So again, we didn't try to clean up the 4-district maps, but if that was the council's direction, we could go back to those.
If you were to do a 4-district, would you be possible to keep the current makeup of our council? Would it be able to be kept in that, or would it, you'd have someone in one district, you'd have 2 people in a district?
No, we could draw it so that
You could hit the
there'd be each
council,
council member is
current
separate.
council, okay.
Yes.
Still keeping though with Latino votes not split up.
Right, they would not be divided, they just would be a lower percentage than they would be.
Right,
in
they
the
wouldn't,
5-district system.
my understanding is that no matter how you sliced up the 4-district mapping, the plurality for the Latino vote would be weaker in the 4-district, regardless of how you tried to slice it up. Whereas the plurality force, or the support strength, is stronger in the 5-district map because you have fewer non-Latino voters in the district that is largely Latino oriented. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
It's a matter of, once you get the concentrated Latino population together, then you just have to add in a certain number, and it's a lower number you have to add in for 5-district system than for 4. Sometimes, just so people know, sometimes you can actually do better in a 4-district system if there are 2 pockets of Latinos. Often, if you have a larger district, then you can get both pockets in a given jurisdiction, so sometimes that works out better. In this case, you just have 1 geographic concentration. And just to emphasize for the record, there are Latinos in every part of the city.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's just a matter of that's where there's a particular geographic concentration of them. So with that, that's our report. Let me just flip through here and make sure I covered everything. I think I got it all. And happy to answer any questions you have or take any direction. And again, in terms of the timeline, we are at the 3rd hearing. There will be another hearing before the council finally has to adopt the map.
Do we have any questions, council, or should we, we'll go ahead and go to the public vote?
Please.
We are going to open up the public hearing now. I have Danita Bocamp who would like to speak. JR, do we have anybody on the line?
We didn't have anybody requesting the floor. We gave them a different
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I am here to address all participants of this meeting, not just those that are on the dais. Those of you that are in attendance in person within this room, people on the Zoom, people that are watching on YouTube. I filed an official written request to this city requesting under the Freedom of Information Act that all copies and documentation proving that a resident or multiple residents of this city's voting rights were violated. I then received an official letter from the city, both by first-class mail and also by email, signed by the city attorney, Bob Kress, stating that there was no such documentation which was falls under this category. So everyone needs to be aware when the city says that they're trying to avert a lawsuit, a formal complaint has not even yet been filed. So the city is not being 100% truthful in the fact that they're saying they're trying to avert a lawsuit if a formal complaint filed in court has not been done. There are certain protocols that must be followed for filing a Civil Rights Act complaint, and those protocols have not been met. The city is moving to district voting as a ploy to allow gerrymandering and to control the voting of the city, not only for the types of businesses and housing projects that will be approved by the council and the mayor, but also to control the political affiliation of the council member themselves. There's only one registered Republican on this dais today. Why is it that the voices of the few are heard, listened to, and followed, yet the majority of the voices are crying out? Not just in my immediate neighborhood, but those of local businesses. I have not encountered one person who is in favor of district voting.
Danita, if you could please raise your mask.
The fact that the
Just
city was
Danita?
well aware of the public
Danita?
hearing.
Please raise your mask. Thank
The
you.
fact that the city was well aware of the website was not working properly. It was inoperable for the maps for people to be drawn. They should have automatically extended the deadline. They were well aware of this at the last public hearing, yet the date for the deadline of the maps was never changed. This again just proves to everyone that the elected officials that sit on this dais do not care about the residents of the city and their opinions. Just as with the fire department issue, it wasn't until 1,200 signatures were collected in a very short period of time the city decided to put it to a citywide election. They could easily do the same for this district voting. People need to understand once this is done, there is no going back, and you will have now entered the point of no return. This city is slowly taking control away from the residents. It's very disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you, Danita. Do you have anyone else who would like to speak on this? Mr. Gabaldon.
It was for public comment.
Yeah, I did make a moment, I'm sorry.
But I would like to come back for more comment. Joe Gabaldon, Amherst, Laverne. Regarding the districting, I think it's been clear that from day one I've been against this. I think it's wrong for Laverne. I think Laverne has a lot of traditions that will be disrupted by this move to district voting. But given the way this works, and we get 3 minutes, I'm going to go this way. As of today, the website shows 5 maps. That was illustrated just a few minutes ago. For the record, my map is number 104. So I believe I had some compliments in there about the construction of the map and would be happy to quantify my choice in that map, including how it is the future of the city is to be constructed, potentially developed, plays a role in how that map plays out. And additionally, the population balanced representing 5 districts. I wish that was available to the community before today's meeting. I'll look forward to working on that for the next time. Also, regarding the district tool, District R mapping tool, that was just posted that it was due by 10/25, yet the citizens did not have use of that tool up in advance of that more than a day or two. So that's really unfair. Regarding the maps for the council's benefit, I've done all the math on how it impacts you politically. And by the way, any mention of how it would align with your current seating is considered political gerrymandering. So keep that in mind. As it stands right now, Mr. Mayor, you are at a disadvantage in 3 of the 5 maps. You and Councilman Carter, which is an interesting combination. Mr. Davis has an advantage in all 5 maps, where Crosby and Lau have an advantage in 2 of the 4 that were provided in numbers 1 through 4, where in 5 they would be at a disadvantage, where in 2024 you would basically be SOL because you sit in a competing district as they're currently constructed. I think that that's going to be an important part of what outcomes are considered to keep it fair for the city and not necessarily for the seat that potentially aligns with that council member. But from the standpoint of how the information is presented to the city to use, as is witnessed and in official record from my comment from the last meeting, that was answered by NDC is that there is no emphasis or mention of 4 districts being an option, which I think is a huge oversight, and the council needs to make it clear to the city that it is perfectly fine for everybody to come up with a 4-district map with an at-large mayor. And that is not clear anywhere on the website. It's not made mention anywhere other than on the occasional note that it might be kind of quickly glossed over. Also, the overlay maps regarding the data that is used, they're simply from a percentage standpoint. There is no qualitative value to them because one person sitting in some of those maps in one of those district blocks can be one person of one. And that provides a false sense of heat for that particular group. So I have a lot to say, but that's what I'll leave it at now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gabaldon. Anybody else wish to speak? Anna, please come up.
Ann Anderson, Sloan Drive. Okay, I might need 1 more minute. Is that okay? All right. So, first I'll just talk about the districting again. It's stupid, okay? It's just ridiculous because even though there's Hispanics in one part of the map, doesn't mean that Hispanic will run or win because the whole neighborhood, all of Laverne is just full of different people. We have different neighborhoods and different people all over the neighborhoods. So there can be somebody, just take this as an example, there could be somebody who's living down there who owns a lot of property, rental property, maybe some property in Laverne, who's going to run and win, and he might not even be Hispanic, but he might just do that for his own benefit. Because now you're making districts, and it's going to be, like you said before, it's going to be easier for people to run with less money and win. So this can be taken advantage of, too. This is a California nightmare. I don't know, maybe the Mr. Attorney can tell us, why didn't California just say, that's the law? Why did they make it like this? Because they usually just make a law. So there must be something about this that they felt couldn't pass if they just made it a law. And I'd like to know what that is. Second of all, why hasn't the city, or maybe they have and we don't know it, why hasn't the city looked at that law and decided if we're in compliance or not? I mean, if you have a company and also this law comes, the first thing you're going to do is find out if you're in compliance or not. But I don't see anybody who has found out if we're in compliance or not. I appreciate the fact that you don't want to get sued. You know me. If those of you who know me, I'm cheap about everything. I don't want to get sued, okay? So, but I'd still like to know if we're in compliance or not before we even go through this whole thing. I know you guys are going to vote on it, and I know the people who don't want districting are going to lose. Okay, I already know that. But I don't know. This 4-district and 5-district thing's ridiculous. If we're going to have districts, and each person in a district is going to run, they're going to have their own district. We need one person on this council that is elected by everybody then, just for us to feel comfortable, okay? I don't think I think the mayor should, whoever the mayor is, should be elected by all our citizens, because now we're already being suppressed with our vote, okay? We can't vote for who we want, but at least we can vote for one person on this council who we know will represent the whole city. And that's how it should be. I also think that, maybe we should have some, what do you call it when you only can run for a certain amount of time? I think we should have some term limits. Okay? I think we should have, the city should think about term limits. Because we had one mayor for how many years? 27 years or something? That's ridiculous. Okay? Everybody in the city should have an opportunity to be up here. And when you keep people up here for too long, you're stopping people who may want to run because they're not known yet and everybody else is known. So they have people up here have the opportunity to win all the time. So if there's term limits, you're opening up for more people to be up here and win. I mean, it's not for everybody. I mean, we can go districts if you want, but not everybody's going to run. It takes a certain kind of a person to run up here. I wouldn't want to do it. But there, So you can say, okay, the people down here are Hispanic, but it's not going to be a guarantee a Hispanic's going to win there. It's not going to. It's just a stupid California dream, okay? I'm not going to even say what it is. I'm not going to get political on it, but it's just stupid. So I know you're going to do it, and I also want to say one thing else. If you guys haven't looked into this law and figured out if we're in compliance or not, I have a feeling, and it's just my feeling, it's just me, that you already know that there's somebody waiting in the background that's going to sue us. I have a feeling that you know that. Some of you know that. Because there's no reason at this point to do it unless you're pretty certain that somebody's going to come in. Because, you know, a long time ago, 40 years ago, when I was talking about this stuff, when all this stuff came out, and even before 40 years ago, the plan was to get people into our cities and change the cities. That was the plan. And it was supposed to happen in the 21st century. Didn't happen, but now we're going 30s and 50s and everything else to get it. And the plan is to get people into the cities and change the cities. And we have people in our cities now that are changing our cities. We don't want to confront it. We don't want, and most of it, you know, good people, they don't care. You can have your own opinions about everything. But when people come into the cities and change our cities covertly, then I have a problem with it. And I got a feeling you guys know that's going to happen. Because I see no other reason why you didn't look into this to see if we're in compliance or not. If there's a reason, I'd like to hear it. If you did, I'd like to hear it. But I haven't heard that at all. All I hear is scare tactics. So we're going to get sued. We're going to get sued. I don't want to get sued. I don't want to spend that money on getting sued, just like you. But I want to know that we will get sued. And I got a feeling you know we're going to get sued. Just like it happened in San Dimas. Same people, different groups, different names. And I'm talking to Lavernians now that if we don't stop these people, they're going to really change our city for the worst.
Could we finish up, Anna?
I'm done.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this? JR? Lily, come on up.
Thank you for the opportunity. I follow up this again and then again. My name is Lily Breno. I live in Old Town. So follow the map. I will be separate with some citizen I know very well, and then we have to separate. So I feel really sad about that. Actually, I'm the person who, from the beginning, followed about how to use that map too, because I want to try it and see. It's interesting because to cut my eyes, the population, the race. This is the first time I consider voting based on race. Open my eyes, okay. So I try to play on that, but always not available. I asked at least 3 times, when will be available for me to check on that? And then I didn't know when it comes out because I was too busy for the, the traffic stuff about the project in next to Luton High School. And then when I figured out, yeah, it's available. And then I try my iPhone, iPad, laptop, desktop, everything. It doesn't work well. The menu always cover the map. It's very difficult to use. I used to be a graphic designer. I should very good at to use any app and software. I'm self-learner. I'm very good at that. Even myself have such a hard time to play with that map tools. And then when I get ready to do something, it's past the due date. October 22, already passed. So I give up. So I still take a very serious look at all the map today. Go through only the 104, okay? Make a little sense. Any other things is just ridiculous. Divide, separate, square, zigzag, unbelievable. So I am Asian. I'm a woman. I'm a minority, okay? I don't even have black hair like an Asian woman. So I never think about now I have to vote based on race. How about my voting right? I didn't vote for the people who same race as I. Last election, I only vote for the people with same value. I always think I'm American, not just Asian American, because I why I become citizen, I didn't become citizen until my husband showed me the face. He didn't want to vote for the president I want to vote for. And I asked him, would you please vote for him, get him a try, and then for our family? And then he voted for Donald J. Trump. Okay, very black face. And I figured out, okay, I better become citizen to vote by myself. So it took me more than 10 years to become a citizen. I have my voting right to vote for the city council, president, mayor. I really think will present me. I didn't vote based on race. I didn't know in the future I have to vote based on race. And my district, I will be in the right corner, squeezing a small block, okay. Laverne is already a very small city. I love it. I love it. This is the place I plan to retire. And I feel I have to squeeze in small block at that corner. I even separate to my friends because the Bonita Avenue or Vine Avenue. You know, how I start get involved in the city council meeting, this is my responsibility and it's my duty. I talk to the people I know in Vine Avenue. We collect hundreds petitions for stopping Vine Avenue 2 years ago. They know, Lily, I support you, but they not show up. But I think they just will show next time when they vote. And a lot of people, they move out. Because the crime, because the missing kids, because the crime increasing. The city change is not a good thing. I feel so worried. Even my son go to knock the door 1 hour, not call me back. I feel panicked 50 days ago because the missing kids is all over right now. So the crime, it will come more when the district voting, more people come in. It's not a good direction. It's the wrong direction. I don't want to choose to be moved out. Okay, it's very hard for me to give up my career, design company, and become a housewife more than 15 years in this city. So I just thinking I'm so sad to watching the city go to the wrong direction. That's why I'm standing here to talk about what else I could do to protect my voting right. I'm American. I don't think I'm Asian American. I don't really care about I'm Asian or Chinese or Filipino. My friends, they're all over everywhere. I didn't think about their skin color. Now my kids have to learn CRT to talk about race in school. Right now, we're going to meeting 2 days later in school board meeting. And last year, Proposition 16, it's because too much Asian kids in college. They have to cut off 50% because too much Asian kids in college. We didn't complain. We didn't play basketball, football, or music industry. In America, the best things of freedom because we are not based on race. But I feel so sad district voting is everything based on race, Hispanic. You guys open my eyes. So I hope not everybody disappointed not come here more. So I come here just like my job. As long as I'm not leaving to this city, I will still come every month, right? That's my responsibility and my duty. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Anyone else in the audience like to speak before we go to the phones? Go ahead, JR.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Patricia Sweetman on Gardenia Lane, and I am against the districting. However, since that seems to be the direction that is going, I do have a few questions. One, let's say we go to districting. Does that prevent anyone from filing a suit? And if not, what would be the options for us to pursue if that happens? What would be the benefit of having districting if someone can still file a suit? Secondly, Hispanic count or population, is that determined by the census that goes every 10 years? More and more people are identifying as multi-ethnic. So does that mean, what does that mean as far as current council and not in the hands of the voters. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, or good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. My name is Ruben Soto, a resident of Laverne. I'd like to commend the city in its consideration of districting as a more representational and democratic method of electing the council. Incumbents should not be a major consideration in determining the districts. I'm concerned with comments from both residents and electeds that this seems to be a determining factor. I've drafted a map that includes consideration of communities of interest, in particular, the commercial areas along Route 66 and the industrial areas south of Arrow Highway. In addition, my draft combines Old Town Laverne and the university as one district and community of interest. Unfortunately, the District R tool does not have a place for the public to explain its decisions, so the consultant had to make some assumptions in making his analysis. I was disappointed that my submission was still in the draft section and not considered for review. After the materials were released, I did realize that it had to be saved twice. And so I look forward to a future analysis of map 72686. I do support a 5-district format. I thank you for your time and your work on this issue. Thank you.
And if there's anyone else joining us via Zoom that would like to speak on this issue, please raise your hand.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I just briefly want to state that the purpose of districting is to have better representation of the interests of the city. It's not just race, but there are other interests that are present in the city. And I would hope that the council would pick a districting scheme that would expand representation rather than dilute it. And it sounds like the 4-district scheme would dilute certain forms of representation, and I think the city should be skeptical of any scheme that dilutes representation rather than supports it. Thank you.
Good evening, this is Cynthia. Can you hear me? Thumbs up from JR. Okay. Just something really quick, Cynthia Gabaldon, also on Amherst. I would really like to know why we're going this far with this. We have had 2 long-term councilmen that, 20, I think one of them 30 years on as actual council members who are both Hispanic. And I don't understand where this big idea of this thought process that we don't have overall representation here. Right now we have an Asian woman, we have had multi ethnic people on planning commission, on council, and this is just, I totally agree with what Anna said, this is just segregating out people in our city. This is nothing to do about fair types of representation. And all of you sitting up there, again, really need to think about it. You are changing the city. There are only 10 people in that audience, right? We've reached out over and over again. I've seen your own public reach out on Facebook. Why aren't more people involved? It's because they don't think you're listening. And that is fundamental through major decisions you guys have been doing for the past few years. And the group of you sitting up there need to stop. No one had access to the maps until this past week. Postpone any future decisions. give the people in town more time to look at the maps, and maybe have a better tutorial on how to make them work, and reach out to more people. There was not enough public outreach, and many of us want an explanation why you think the city of Laverne would not qualify or would not meet the criteria of whatever this new regulation is, and thinking that you would have to go forward with this. You're splitting up the city, and this is something that you guys and the city will never ever recuperate from. Thank you.
Anyone else via Zoom?
Yes.
Kathy Newland, Foothill Terrace. I think just watching this, I can't see anything other than the 4 district. 5 districts should not even be considered. Like everyone is saying, we want to be able to vote for the mayor. And you seem to be pushing the 5 districts, some of you. And that just takes away all of our voting rights. And I thought that the whole idea of this was polarizing voting rights. Now you're going to be doing it to all of us because we're only going to be able to vote for one person in our district. And I think we all should have a chance to vote for the mayor. So that's my opinion, is I don't even want to see 5 districts.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else? JR, nothing? If there's no one else, we're going to close public comment and come bring it up to the dais. Mr. Russi.
I think there were some questions that did
Yes.
come up, and I don't know if you want Doug to get up and try and
Yes,
respond
please.
to several of those before we...
Can he change his mask? Because we really only heard half of what he said.
Doug, if you could, raise the mic or pull the mic. Actually, you could hold the mic too if you want to.
There you go. Is that better? There you go.
Doug, could I ask you to explain how this works as far as if this goes and we do what we're supposed to, whether it be a 4 district or 5 district, how the election process works for an incumbent, someone that's out of term. Can you please explain that?
Sure. This is the issue, it's referred to as election sequencing. So regardless of how many districts there are, a certain number will be assigned to 2022 and a certain number to 2024. If council members end up in the individual districts, then that's easy. Just assign the district to the year that lines up with that council member's term. If council members end up paired, if council members whose election year is the same end up in the same district, then that's also easy. It's that year and they just have to run against each other. If 2 council members whose election is in different years are paired together, then the council has to decide. If a 2022 council member and a 2024 council member in the same seat, the council decides is that seat up in 2022 or 2024. If it's assigned to 2024, then the 2022 council member finishes their current term. None of this has any impact on your current terms, but then simply leaves the council because the term would end in 2022. The replacement election would be held in a different district somewhere else in the city. So the council member would either have to move or just leave the council. If that district is assigned to 2022, it gets even more complex. The 2022 council member could run at the end of the current term. The 2024 council member would face a choice. They could choose to run midterm for the district seat, kind of like running for mayor or assembly or county supervisor or something else. You don't have to resign the seat until after you win the election, assuming one wins. So a 2024 council member could run midterm, and if they win, they resign the last 2 years of their 4-year term, leaving a 2-year vacancy, and they're sworn into the 4-year term. If they lose, again, there's no impact on your current term, so the council member would stay on the council for 2 more years before leaving at the end of the term, because that seat would not be up in 2024. It could lead to the very interesting situation where 2 people run against each other for council, and then find that each other, one would win and one would lose, and they'd still be sitting next to each other up at the dais. So we do ask that if this happens, people keep their races.
I know how
very
that
gentle.
feels.
Yes, exactly. It's an interesting challenge. So that is a complicating factor. So ultimately, there still needs to be the same number of seats up in the same number of years, or in the same years. So that the number that's up in 2022 or 2024 is set. Which seats those are is the council's decision when the map is chosen.
I think one of the other questions, too, was the fact that if we do go to district voting, which, that's the direction we're heading right now, whether it be a 5 or a 4 district, once we go to the district voting, that we could not be sued once all the criteria has been met in the district. Is that correct? I think that was one of the big questions that someone asked.
Correct. Under the California Voting Rights Act, there is a safe harbor if you're in by-district elections. So as long as you're in district elections, you can't be sued under that law. Of course, as your city attorney can tell you, there's all kinds of stuff you can be sued over. But they would have to show a Voting Rights Act violation to bring a federal challenge against the map, or one of these, or a lawsuit alleging a violation of the Fair Maps Act criteria, the state criteria that I mentioned. But you would be safe if you're in districts. You're safe from a California Voting Rights Act challenge.
So let me drill down into that a little bit more. You're saying if we go into districts, even if we're diluting represented classes' votes, say the Hispanic class, even if we're diluting those votes rather than supporting their ability to vote as a class, we would still have safe harbor, or would we be subject to a lawsuit then? Because one of the questions that was asked that I'll go ahead and frame is, are we in compliance or are we at risk? And we're at risk of a lawsuit right now. Well, until we went into this effort, we were at risk of being sued. My concern is that we district in a manner that still leaves us at risk of being sued because we failed to comply with the rules of districting to the point where if we which is the primary reason I'm looking at 5 versus 4 is because of the dilution of the Hispanic vote. And if we go 4 and we dilute the Hispanic vote, does safe harbor apply and protect us, or does it not apply?
So 2 parts to my answer for that. One is that if the line divided the Latino community, then there's a federal problem there. You'd be intentionally diluting their vote if you drew a line through that concentrated neighborhood.
So it's a state versus federal now. So we need to be thoughtful about the way we're dividing all this up, so that we're in compliance with, and we're reducing the at-risk piece, and we're more in compliance with both federal and state voting laws, is what I hear you saying.
So, yes, I think on the state law, the law kind of anticipates going to 4 or 5. So you're probably fine with the letter of the law either way, but the clear spirit of the law is that the goal of the law is to enhance Latino voting strength, and you'd be more in compliance with that spirit if you go to 5 seats.
Thank you.
There was about the legal challenge, and it was stated in the district public hearing that while the city has not yet received any legal challenges to its election system, the council determines prudent to initiate the districting process to prevent any costly potential legal challenges and better understand its by-district election system options. So, I personally, I don't like it either. I'm in a odd position right now as far as. But I think that with all of my other colleagues being on the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments, there's so many cities, there's school districts, our supervisorial districts are all going to district voting. And whether we do a 4 or 5, I do like to have an oversight of a mayor. I think it's very important, whether it be me or someone else. I do like the 4 district. But as Mayor Pro Tem Davis stated, we have to be careful. But I also want to let everybody know that this isn't over yet. This is just a recommendation to send to you guys to say, hey, here's a map, look at these 2. But up until the, was it the 15th or the 16th of November? The next
Actually,
meeting.
Well, you will see this at the next hearing to take an action one way or another at the 15th meeting.
But there will be
But-
other maps.
Yes, and I believe the deadline, Doug, to submit maps?
So we have to have them posted by the 8th, so we need them probably by the 5th to get them posted.
So people have the opportunity through
The
this
5th
week.
of November.
Yes.
And I must say that I know that cities, I understand that how frustrating this was. I know the city manager, myself, council included, because our demographers had some issues internally, but also the state didn't get us the information. The prison population, things were wrong. The information was wrong. I did do my own map, and I thought it wasn't too bad. And mind you, I'm not that great and savvy on it, but it's cut and click, and it actually worked out pretty well. I was a 4-district, as long as Mr. Gabaldon was also. But we're where we're at right now. I mean, I think that as a council, we need to move forward. We need to make sure we protect ourselves. Don't want a lawsuit. I know we don't have a lawsuit, but as Anna Anderson stated, we don't do this to December 15th. This is our deadline. We have to be ready. But I can't stress enough that people need to put more maps in. You've got a number of days, and I get it. It's almost like a shotgun situation where we're rushing through this, but it was out of our hands. I mean, we're COVID, all the other situations, and I know we're all getting tired of that one. We're getting tired of masks. We're getting tired of a lot of things, but the point is that we're where we're at now. We need to support, or at least propose that a 4 and a 5, or whatever the situation is, to push forward, but people need to get their recommendations in and still get their maps in.
And if I could just have Doug clarify one thing about the deadline of this Friday for the posting. People can certainly bring maps to the 15th meeting, however.
Yes, exactly. The deadline we're announcing is so we can process it, run the demographics, and get the numbers ready. One of the many bizarre things of the state law is that the deadlines that it sets are not public submission deadlines. They're posting on this project website deadlines. So the 8th is the deadline to post it. Thus, we have to set an earlier deadline so we can process it and get it up there. Nothing would be worse than turning in a deadline in time and then not getting it posted in time. So that's why I have to set that deadline. And Mayor, to your point, the other thing I didn't mention earlier is, as all these delays have piled up, the state has actually moved the deadline shorter. So our deadline to finish has never moved except to become earlier to December 15th.
Well, the supervisorial districts right now are going through the same thing, and it's quite extensive, and they're under the same situation. They've asked for extensions, and they said, no,
Right.
December 15th. And it's critical because in the supervisorial districts, you could lose a district that you've had a supervisor in that supports your community, and it gets, as Mr. Russi will attest to, I'm on the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. I have a meeting tomorrow, and it's reviewing the districts, and some of the districts are completely basically the entire San Gabriel Valley, except a few of us little cities, is one district. So there's a lot of changes that they're looking at. So, and it's 2 million residents each little district. Not little, but each big district. So anyway, go ahead, please.
Okay, one area that has not been addressed is the whole purpose of why I feel we have to go 5 districts. Could you clarify? In my opinion, if you have 4 districts, you're going to have a mayor and someone representing that city, a council member, so you'd have 2 representation in 1 district. And that is unbalanced. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, it's 2 votes.
So the mayor could be from anywhere in the city, and
Mhm.
obviously wherever the mayor was from would have the mayor and a council member from that district.
Absolutely. So, that makes it unbalanced because if any topic you could have those 2 wanting something, and all you need is 1 more vote. So I think for equal representation, yes, it should be 5.
But we actually already have that, though, Robin. We have that already. You and I live in the same neighborhood. If we could just, we keep it to the dais, please.
Yeah.
Council.
You go ahead, Rick. I'll wait.
I know you did not make the 4 maps, the 4 district maps, and you did the other ones to balance them as much as possible. I think I would like to see what that would look like, just for to compare. And just to have a comparison on that. I understand. And then can you note on those maps the amount of the significant group it is of the minority vote, of the Latino vote, and then how much would be, because you said diluted by then, how much would that be on there as well? So then we could see the difference as well on that one.
Would that be 104? That was the most balanced, 104 and 105. Was that,
Well,
or either one of them?
Well, I think he did the other
I think it was 104.
3 by doing the other 2.
103
would
was a
make it equal
balanced, and then
representation.
we went to 10. No, he didn't. He didn't do it on 104 or 105, so which is a 4 district.
So that's what he's asking.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just asking which one he would go with.
Because on the 101, 102, and 103, there are pieces that change significantly from what the resident put in. And there are pieces where, the one took off, was on the west side, but it moved to the east side. And so I would want to see how that looked to try to, and you said you're going to try to still, instead of slicing it down the middle, through the lower portion of Laverne, that you try to make so that balance as much as possible.
Sure.
So just would like to see what that looks like.
Sure, happy to. We can take the ideas that are in the 4 district maps and do a refined version.
But
of
just
what's
still
done.
understand what it does to a minority voting. And the whole portion of, it's not necessarily having a different minorities on the dais, it's having their vote. It's not where we've had a Hispanic on the dais for 20 years. It's so that we don't dilute a minority's vote. That's what the law is, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So a question one of the folks brought up via Zoom was about being able to provide their rationale for how they mapped or why they mapped. Is there a way for that person or for any person to submit if they think that would be helpful in council's consideration or in NDC's consideration? Is there a way for them to or would it just be emailed to council? Or
You exactly nailed it. It would be the same way that you share a comment on any council item. They can send an email or a letter into the city and just reference, as the gentleman did, just reference what map they're talking about.
okay, thank you.
But if they wanted, if I could follow up on that, to provide that input to NDC as part of your consideration when you're reviewing them, would they send a separate email, or can they include that somewhere in their submission? Is there a place for comments on the submission?
It actually doesn't. District R is somewhat designed for anonymous participation, so it doesn't have that feature in it. But I would certainly say, certainly send it into the city. We recommend it come to the city so it doesn't get lost in the official records, but then the city would obviously share.
But be sure in
share
that
it with us.
dialogue to put, or that email to reference whatever map they are speaking to, so you can connect it. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, and just as the gentleman did, the District R gives you a 5-digit number. And essentially when that comment comes in, when we report to you and summarize the input, we would tell you public 105 is District R, yada, yada. So you can tie those things together.
Yeah, because I think to Councilmember Crosby's point too, some of the 3 maps that were balanced did change what they look like. And I don't know if the people who submitted these maps, as well as 104 and 105, had a rationale that they would have appreciated maybe articulating, so that in rebalancing or in trying to make it comply, if those points could be taken into consideration, I'd like for folks to be able to do that.
I agree 100%. I'd much rather have their summary of it than try to summarize it for them.
Okay.
I completely agree.
Well, and in addition to that, I'd like to see, so it was interesting to see how the rebalancing, at least for the 5 districts, all sort of tended to move the same directions. But it would be interesting to see the statistics behind the NDC analyzed map. I mean, in the presentation, we got to see the map drawings, but I'd like to be able to see I have the numbers for the publics. I'd like to see the similar numbers for the NDC analyzed then, so I can see how much was changed in the demographics behind the pretty picture.
No problem. We can certainly provide those.
Councilmember Carter? Well, then I'm kind of in agreement too. I would like to see what a 4-district looks like, and with the demographics tied up and making sure. So, council, it looks like 103 being a 5-district was a balanced. Is that correct? So we have to give them a recommendation as far as what we'd like to see them go with.
Not what they're going with, but we're giving them direction right now, what we want to see for next time.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because you've got, which, we're going to pick drawings, is that correct? We're going to have 4-district and a 5-district, or are you just going to?
No, because No, because I think there's still an opportunity, my understanding is for other residents or for residents who've already submitted to resubmit based on information they've gained today.
Right.
So we wouldn't make a decision now on 4 or 5.
Yeah, I don't mean a decision, I'm just saying, so you're going to take these, but we're going to get more recommendations this week.
Yes.
By the end of the week, we should have, then you're going to put those all together and bring them back to us on the 16th, 15th, correct? Okay.
Correct. Often if we have 10 or 20 maps at this point, we will ask you to narrow it down, but considering we only have 5 at this point, you probably don't have to do that. If you wanted to rule something out, you could, but there's no need to unless you...
But I too would like to see the 4-district separated also, and so everything you have, to look at the 4 districts and see how you break those up. Obviously, you're going to have to do the tools on that one, because...
Sure. And I would note the tool is now updated with the current data, so we won't have that issue for maps submitted this week.
But I will echo that the information, as Councilmember Lau said, is very important. If we must get that information from our residents, that when they have a comment or something, or why we did something, or their concerns, it's very important that we get that, and we don't want it lost in the shuffle as far as emails. So it's very important that whatever our residents and...
There are 2 ways to do it. The most efficient way, so it doesn't have to come to the city, is there's a contact button on the Map Laverne page. They can submit it there, and it goes directly to, I think it actually goes to Todd directly. So that analyzing, that input is helpful to go directly to them. So we cut out the middleman.
Okay. And we'd please have that for us when we're reviewing these in our next meeting. Councilman
One last clarifying question, and it doesn't deal with the districting, is if we went with a 4 and 1 mayor, that mayor, just like it is now, is still up every 2 years.
That's correct.
Yeah, he nodded his head.
I didn't.
That was
I'm
a yes.
looking through Mayor Pro Tem Dave. There we go. There he is.
So then I just want to make it clear, so if anyone is submitting any comments with their maps, whether they're new maps or revised maps, you want them to reference the 5-digit map number that is assigned to their specific map if they're submitting comments to you on the contact button.
Correct, because they won't know what number we're going to give it when we process it. So that 5-digit number works, and then we'll give you a little key so you can tell which maps they're referring to.
Okay.
So just to be clear, everything's up and working. No issues. They can bring in hand-drawn maps. You guys will work on that if they have them. So some people don't have the technology. Make sure they bring in their hand maps, whatever the situation may be, but also submit. Everything's up and running, because when I did mine, it seemed, I didn't even know I submitted it. I submitted it, and it was like, and I talked to city manager, and said, oh, I submitted it. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, okay. Then we have direction. He's going to bring back. We're going to meet our next meeting.
I just want to clarify one thing that you said, Mayor, which is if people want NDC to work on their map in hard copy or online, it has to be in by this Friday.
That is correct.
On the 15th, residents can still bring in maps. They just won't have had the benefit of being analyzed by NDC for consideration.
And I think it goes further. The council can take an action on it if it hasn't been posted. Is that correct?
Right. The weird law says the council cannot consider a map if it hasn't been posted 7 days in advance.
Oh, wow.
So if they get it into District R, technically it would count as posted. So as long as they get it into District R, and be sure to make it live, you have to give it a name so it appears in the gallery by the 8th. Then by the 5th to get it processed by us, by the 8th up on District R to be considered by the council. After that, the council can't consider it until the following hearing.
Okay,
and
so
that may be too late.
So any map that's not submitted by the 5th then really is not going to be helpful at all.
Well, the 8th, if they get it into District R by the 8th, they could come up and, we can bring it up.
I guess I was responding to the, if people are bringing new maps on the 15th, those won't be considered at all.
Right.
Because that's where I was confused. I thought people could bring new maps on the 15th, but that's, my understanding is erroneous. And so new maps on the 15th are not helpful.
They can bring them in and present them, but it's kind of like open public comment. The council can't act on them at that
Gotcha.
meeting.
Thank you.
So can I then just a couple points of clarification and a request to the staff then? So this is not ideally how we would want to do the timeline. This is the timeline that is imposed by the state.
Exactly.
So we have to comply. It sucks. I get it. I would like to have more time than getting everything in on a Friday as well. But it is what it is. To that end, though, can we please put out messaging so that it is clear? I don't want people to mistakenly believe that they can bring something in on the 15th and then it can't be considered, because then I don't want to waste anyone's time if they're going to do that. That's not fair. So I hate the timeline. It is what it is, but then at least let's be clear about it so people know, hey, I got to do it and get it in by the 5th in order for it to be considered.
We will include that in the messaging of the reminders of when they're due.
Maybe like an FAQ or something that would be helpful in layman's terms and bullet points. So,
As my council member so stated, it sucks. I like that. But where we're at, so I want to trailer on Councilmember Lau. I want bullet points, be specific. I don't want anybody saying we weren't sure, we weren't clear. They need to be bullet points and not a lot of minutia, because when you explain the voting and how these, your seat is up, your seat's not up, I read that 6 times and I'm going, I'm still kind of confused. I mean, obviously when you do it, it'll all work out, but I understand a seated person, unseated, you can run, all that stuff. But bullet points for what we're doing to make sure our residents understand. The submitting thing is the deadline's the deadline, bottom line, end of discussion. So just make sure we bullet point it, make sure it's open, make sure that people have the information. Please.
Yep. And as Councilmember Lau just pointed out, just so we'll emphasize, these deadlines are set by the state. The council does not have any flexibility to move these.
Okay. Council, any other questions or comments? Then you have our direction and you're moving forward.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Russi, anything else? We will close this public hearing, and we are going to public comments and communication. Would anybody like to get up and speak? Mr. Gabaldon.
All right, I followed the rules. I wish they wouldn't leave, because I think that this whole situation is outrageous. That we just found out that we essentially have 4 days as a community to figure it out. And we've had this on the dais since July. And from the day one, people that work in business would know that you have to work backwards from a timeline and make sure that you manage that timeline and all the processes and the people that are involved so that these kinds of situations do not happen. This has not been properly managed. This is a failure for the city, that this city is now in the position of having to come up with a map when only 5 we're ready to look at today. And I'm one of them. Okay, this is ridiculous. And Mr. Mayor, I'm going to give this to you because you're the most impacted by this whole situation, and you know it. And the questions that we'd love to ask of people that just left the room that are supposed to be paid by the city to help us as a city to make good decisions just walked out. I'd like to know, what is that deadline that we're trying to meet, and what happens if we don't meet it? I'd like to know if we go to 4 districts versus the 5 district, do we have the option to go back to a different form of government? These are all important questions, and nobody's given us, good answers. It's like we listen to you guys talk and go back and forth and, ask good questions, but we don't get a chance to come back up here and ask another round of questions. We're all on this little clock. I left it on my chair to make sure I got my 3 minutes. But this is kind of baloney, guys. This is really, I mean, Councilman Lau, you made a comment about it is what it is. That's not fair to us. You're making a decision that affects people that have lived here for their entire life, people who live here for generations, people that hopefully want to live here for generations, and we're basically rushing people in 4 days to go and draw little maps and not understand what they're doing and what the data means and take the time to really understand what it is that they're carving out for their future. What are we doing here, folks? Why did you put us on this timeline if you knew it was this harsh? Why didn't you manage these people? Mayor Pro Tem Davis, last time you said that the data, because I made a comment about garbage in, garbage out, more as a comment on in general, when you don't take data in that is good data, that you're going to get bad results, right? You're going to make bad decisions. The same thing is going on here right now. Why if the data wasn't that much different than what it is today for people to use, wasn't it made available to people a long time ago instead of holding it back to find out what people come out of prisons that make a difference in this district? And everybody up here said, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Well, if it doesn't make a difference, why wasn't it up here a month ago for people to do this? This is outrageous. I think it's unacceptable for this entire council to have let this happen. And yeah, I got a yellow card because the next card's red. I wish more people were here in the city, and I would make a recommendation on a constructive note that this date needs to be on the front page of the website in big letters. There is nothing more important in this city than this date now, and it should be more conspicuous and not just in the middle of something that we paid $40,000 to. You corrected me the last time about me making a comment about we haven't done the outreach. I don't know anybody in this city, and I know a lot of people that have specifically been reached out to about what it is this is. I see things on Twitter. I see things on our website. I don't see anything else really going on. That's my opinion. It may be not factual. I'd like to know how much of that $40,000 actually went to the outreach as opposed to paying people that just walked out of this room. Thank you.
Anyone else on public comment? Danita.
Just as Mr. Gabaldon said that the city was well aware of the website not working, and although the dates cannot be extended because these are being set forth by the state, I think the city needs to apologize to the residents and accept responsibility for the failure of that website not working for these maps. 5 people in a city of 36,000 is acceptable to you? That should be absolutely ridiculous to every single person on this dais. I think the website says November 15th. That implies I can do it on the 15th and still have input. It's a false sense of being a participant. How long is it going to take them to fix it? And then is it still going to have enough time for them to do their analysis and come back with a map for the meeting on the 15th? I don't think that's a reasonable amount of time. The city's closed on Fridays, so technically that's really Thursday the 4th for you guys to have official receipt of that map. So we're talking about 72 hours from right now is the cutoff for anybody else to have the ability to turn in a map. That is not an easy thing to maneuver. I did one today, and I consider myself completely computer efficient and know how to operate that, and that thing was ridiculous. It was not user-friendly. I can see where elderly people, which a majority of our residents are, would have extreme difficulty with that. Even doing a printout map and coloring it in, how are you going to see the numbers? How are you going to know if it's fair? How are you going to know what races are involved? There's so much, as you say, minutia involved, and it's completely convoluted. And I also found out from a neighbor of mine that there were 2 council members who had a meeting at the park. Why wasn't that put on the city's website so that more people could attend and ask questions on an impersonal basis and help them to understand what this city is trying to achieve by going to district voting? So you cry out and say, well, we need more people to get involved, yet there's nothing on the city's website. There's no outreach. There's no flyers at Maybe the Meals on Wheels can pass out flyers when they go, or have billboards at the schools for parents to see when they pick up their kids. Something. There is zero advertising about this in the city. And just as Mr. Gabaldon said, you spent $40,000 on this, but you're not spending money on encouraging the residents to get involved. It's the same 10, 12 people here every meeting. We need to really think about the seriousness of this.
Thank you, Janita. Yes. Anyone else? Anna.
Annie Anderson, Salone. I have a question for the staff. I hope the council lets them answer this. Like I said, I'm not interested in the 5 districts. Thank you, Mr. Crosby, for asking for 4 and an analysis on it. Like I said, it's nothing personal or anything else. We have to at least have the ability, all the city, to vote for one person on this council that we voted for, okay? Because we can't vote for whoever we wanted in the other districts, okay? So we have to have that ability. So my question is, if we do an initiative, I think we need 15% of the voters in the city to get that on a ballot. And I think that's correct. I'm not sure, but I think it's California law. And if we are going to have an initiative, it'll probably be, I'm not going to ask for a special election because I know it's a lot of money. It'll probably be in June or July when our next election is. And I'd like initiative on the ballot to have the citizens pick the 4 or 5 districts. Because I'm not going to have all my voting rights taken away from me. I won't have it. And so I'd like to know if it's still 15% of the voters in the city, and when it has to be presented to you as the council, because I know we have to present it, and you can just say okay, or you might have us have to walk the neighborhoods and get those signatures. And I think that's about it. I'd like to have some questions answered to how this works. And if it does get on the initiative, does that hold any lawsuits up until we actually vote? That's really important that I want to know that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Anna. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello again, Yvonne Gallegos, College Green. I too submitted a map last week, and I do want to say that anyone who is out there watching this on Zoom to not be discouraged by going out there and creating a map. It wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty fun. I did feel it was like coloring. And my map is submitted with 5 districts, and I did do it purely based on having equal amounts of residents within the city. So within the 5 districts, there's about 6,200 within each one of my districts. Also, like I said, for any of those that are feeling not represented, I don't want anyone to feel discouraged to go ahead and submit their maps and have their voices made. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Anyone else? We will close the public comment and move to... Oh, I'm sorry. We got anybody online?
If there's anybody on Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to speak under public comment.
Yeah, you've got all the names up and stuff on the side. That's nice. Thank you. We were going to close public comment and move to council comments. Who would like to start tonight? Councilmember Carter, please.
Okay, this comment that I have is mostly for the public so that everyone out there can hear, but for all the wonderful things the city of Laverne does, the month of November, December, there's a lot of activities. I want everyone to go onto the website. The community services area is selling tickets for different events as they come up. And Snow Day is a big day, and we're going to be able to have that this year. And we're happy to bring that back for all the little ones. And there's so many other downtown events going on. So please look over the website, community services area, and there's a booklet you can review. And also something going on in the city this Saturday is Foothill Terrace Mobile Home Park is doing a holiday craft fair. And that's open to the public. And that will start this season. So if you want to come out, please join.
Yes, and just echo that too. And our celebration of Veterans Day on November 11th, as the mayor said, at 11 o'clock over at Veterans Hall. And really support the people that have served our country. And just, we have a lot of activities, a lot of things happening, and just be informed and be represent. Thank you.
Just a couple of things. I did want to bring up that today and tomorrow are Dia de los Muertos. Thank you, Yvonne, for bringing that up. I also wanted to share that Cassie does have a meeting on Wednesday, and there's a monthly community roundtable that's being put on by a number of groups, including Benina Unified, Stay Well San Dimas, the Randall Lewis Center, and that is meeting on Thursday, November 4th at 12 p.m., and it's at the Landis Academic Center over at the University of Laverne campus. Just a reminder, too, that Sunday, November 7th is Daylight Savings Time, so it's that time again to turn our clocks back. And then I just wanted to share out a little bit. I attended the Tri-Cities meeting on behalf of Councilwoman Carter the other week, and if you're not aware of the resources that Tri-Cities does provide for not just our city, but some of our surrounding cities, it is really amazing. They've been providing assistance to folks who needed help with filling out paperwork in order to get aid for rent issues and whatnot. And so there's just a variety of things that they're doing on pretty much I don't want to say a shoestring budget, but they're doing a lot with very little. So if you get a chance to check them out, I highly recommend it. It's a really good group. So that is all. Have a good week.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with everybody on the activities on the website. Cassie meeting this Wednesday, November 3rd at 5. Veterans Day celebration, 11/11 at 11. This Thursday, no, is it Thursday at noon? I'm trying to remember the meeting at noon. But at any rate, sorry, look for a meeting at noon. There's so much going on. Pomona Valley Transportation Authority has a meeting next Wednesday, 11/10 at 5 p.m. And so I learned a lot about Dia de los Muertos this year. My church had a Sunday school class on it, on Mesoamerica and the origins of Dia de los Muertos. Some communities celebrate it for one day, that is tomorrow. Some celebrate it for several days, starting today. And some communities actually celebrate it for weeks, even starting in late October. So all I can say is Feliz Dia de los Muertos to everyone.
You just learned it this last year. You haven't seen Coco in the last.
Who hasn't seen Coco?
No,
I
quite well.
They actually, Disney did a very good job on the spirit of Dia de los Muertos, which is really that connection with our ancestors and our heritage, and understanding the importance of those ties and how that carries us forward. The understanding of the Mesoamerica piece and all of that was really the fascinating piece that I learned.
Okay, the only other thing I'd like to say is when you're using acronyms, it's great for us to know that, but for the general public to say Cassie, it sounds real. When you say it fast, it sounds like you're saying Kathy's meeting.
Oh, right,
So-
okay. The Cultural Awareness and Social Inclusion meeting is this Wednesday night at 5 p.m. Thank you, because at Edison I do the same thing that you're doing. And the Pomona Valley Transportation Authority, in case I said PVTA, that's the meeting a week from Wednesday, November 10th at 5 p.m.
And just really quick, for those of you who enjoy Laverne Brewing Company, they are having a ribbon cutting on their patio expansion. Yes, beer garden at 4 tomorrow. So.
Good catch.
Thank you to everyone here, and I do appreciate everyone being here, and I do appreciate the comments. They are taken seriously. This is something we're moving into that's, it's a big change for all of our community, but I think we just do to make sure that everybody gets a chance to see it and react to it and also comment on it. But as Councilmember Carter said, this is a packed month. We've got Thanksgiving coming, we've got Christmas coming, we've got the holiday stroll, we've got the Winter Wonderland. The 20th, we've got Cruise in Laverne, the same day as the Historical Society. Veterans Day on the 11th. The downtown Halloween walk this weekend on Saturday was amazing. It was 2 to 5. The downtown businesses all opened up, candy for the kids, parents dressed up. It's really cool. That's one of the things about our community. We, between our community services department and between our businesses, they all jump in and really treat the city nice, treat our residents nice and the kids. But the kids had a great time. The fire station was open. Public safety was open. All the businesses were open, handing out candy. I also was at at the Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Michael Perez. That was Saturday at 3:30 p.m. across the street at the Methodist Church, just down over here. As we had tonight, we celebrated 4 of the Eagle Scouts with their scout projects, so that was a lot of fun. But we are coming into the holiday time, and thank God that those 2 children are found. And everybody be safe, enjoy, and but do pay attention to our website. I will say I went on there and the new it's the magazine that's posted. That's pretty cool. You go on in the magazine. What's it called? What's the magazine? Yeah, there's one. Anyway, you go on the website and it's actually digital, and you can flip through the pages on it to see what's going on in the community, all the different aspects of what we do, the community services department, different businesses and stuff. So it was really cool. But anyway, I do appreciate everyone coming. And with that, our next regular scheduled, actually our adjournment to Monday, November 8th, for assessment of our fire operations. That's going to be a very, very important meeting. Chief Nig is coming, and we're going to find out what's going on with that. And then our next actual regular scheduled meeting, the Laverne City Council, is Monday, November 15th at 6:30 p.m.
And Mr. Mayor, that
Yes.
study session will be at 6:30?
Didn't I say 6:30?
I don't.
You didn't say time.
Oh, I'm sorry. The November 8th fire assessment operations is at 6:30 p.m. on November 8th. It's going to be very, very important that we all pay attention to that. Besides, get your mapping in, please. Everybody get engaged in this, please.
Can we come November 8th?
Yes.
Yes, it will be the same format.
Same
It will
format.
either be hybrid or this limited in
Yeah,
person.
definitely. It's going to be a good meeting. So anyway, everyone have a great week. Thank you. We are adjourned at 8:26. Thank you all.